If you turned the game off when the Nashville Predators were down 3 goals in the third period against the Vegas Golden Knights last night, have I got news for you.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this Wednesday post-game episode with a shout out to our Locked On Pred heads. Those are our everyday listeners who tune in to talk all things Nashville Predators hockey with us all week long. We appreciate your support. We love that we get to spend just a little bit of your day with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I don't know about you, but last night's comeback overtime win against the Vegas Golden Knights has me so very ready to talk about this team yet again today. That's right. The Nashville Predators came back from a 3-goal third period deficit to win the game. And on today's show, I'm going to tell you why this was the most important win of the entire 18-game point streak. We're also going to talk about keys to the win. We're going to hear from some of the players and from the coach, and we're going to talk about what adjustments the Predators may need to make ahead of tomorrow night's game against the Arizona Coyotes. So a ton to get to after one of the most incredible nights in Smashville I think any of us have seen in a long, long time. Before we kick all of that off, though, I do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Last night was one of the most exciting, loudest, most raucous, incredible hockey games I have ever seen at Bridgestone Arena. Now, caveat to that, I wasn't in attendance at the Stanley Cup Finals games, but what is happening with this Nashville Predators team and what is happening with the Bridgestone Arena crowd and around the city when it comes to this Predators team is absolutely freaking amazing. The Nashville Predators came back from a 3-goal third period deficit for the first time this season, only the 5th time in franchise history to defeat the Golden Knights in overtime by a score of 5-4. That's right. If you turned the game off at the beginning of the third period, spoiler alert, the Predators won that game. Of course, here at Locked On Predators, we always love to kick off our game recaps with one word to describe the game. And I reached out and asked you for your one word to describe that absolutely lights out, incredible third period comeback game from the Predators. And this is what some of you had to say. The most popular one word, and I 100% agree, is the word relentless. That's been the buzzword for this Predators team. That is 100% what we saw on the ice from this team in a game where they were down 3 goals. They were down 3-0 after the first period. They were down 4-1 after the second period, and they came back to win it 5-4. That is relentless hockey, my friends. At John Langford, okay, I love this word. His one word is amazeballs, which is a word that I think should be more in the everyday vernacular of everyone, just in general, but such a great word to describe this game. At Bulletproof Dress, one word was impressive. Discrediting and underestimating the Preds is a silly take. At Bulletproof Dress went on to say, I am a Panthers fan and cheering for them to surprise people by taking the West. Christina at Wayward Blade 24. Hey, Christina, your one word is fearless. I love that word. This Predators team down in a situation that's very difficult to come back in against anyone, let alone the very stingy Vegas Golden Knights. And this team did not blink. The Nashville Predators played fearless hockey. At Ice Cats 28, hey, Sydney, one word, battled. And that's what this was. Like, this Predators team just continued to battle. They did not give up. My one word is, of course, more than one word because, like, we make the rules, we break the rules. And my one word is 2 quicksand pits. But let me explain. So, if you are a child of my generation, you lived for Saturday morning cartoons. That's when we got the good stuff, was on Saturday mornings. And in the old cartoons, like, the Looney Tunes with Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd and Woody Woodstock and some of these older cartoons, one of the shticks that happened all the time was quicksand. And so my generation grew up thinking, oh my gosh, look out for quicksand. And it felt like the Nashville Predators started this game in their own quicksand pit. Like they just slowly started sinking. But my friends, there are ways to escape quicksand. I know this because I've Googled it. And one of the things you do, the first thing you kind of do is move your legs back and forth horizontally. You make space to free your feet. You also want to try to lie on your back because it's harder to sink in quicksand when your weight is distributed over more of the whole surface. And then the key is slow, deliberate moves to work your way out. You don't want to panic. You don't want to get frantic. Slow, deliberate moves gets you out of quicksand. Now, the Vegas Golden Knights had a quicksand pit of their own, but theirs was much more Shane Falco from The Replacements, which is a great movie if you haven't watched that. Shane Falco talks about playing as a quarterback in football, and this is what he had to say about quicksand. He said, "You're playing and you think everything is going fine. Then one thing goes wrong, and then another, and another. You try to fight back, but the harder you fight, the deeper you sink until you can't move. You can't breathe because you're in over your head like quicksand." Last night was the tale of 2 quicksand pits. And I'm not taking anything away from Vegas. And I want to be careful not to say that Vegas made a ton of mistakes in the third period. I mean, this is a great Vegas team. They played a very good game. They were on the second game of a back-to-back. They played an overtime game the night before. So it's not that Vegas just choked. It's that Nashville just slowly and deliberately worked their way out of the quicksand of the first period and the second period and came back. And I don't know if I've mentioned this, but they won this game 5-4 in overtime. Here's a quick 30-second recap. If you missed last night's game, just throwing it out there. They replay the games on Bally Sports South, middle of the afternoon, usually around 1-ish. If you missed last night's game, friends, find Bally Sports South and rewatch it because it will blow your mind. First period, very rough for the Nashville Predators. Ivan Barbashev got the Knights on the board with a just flawlessly executed 2-on-1 breakaway chance with Jack Eichel. It was just an incredible play. Brett Howden capitalized on a defensive zone turnover 3 minutes later to score. And then with just 3 minutes left in the period, Shea Theodore scored through traffic to make it 3-0 after 1. And everybody in Bridgestone was like, oh, crap. Nashville came out very hot in the second period. They had a lot of, quick mojo, quick momentum. They got an early power play chance. Looked pretty good, but then Tyson Barrie headed to the bench for a slash on a shorthanded breakaway chance. Nashville then had to kill off that penalty, which they did, and the score remained 3-0. Mark Jankowski got Nashville on the board at 14:33 after Nashville had started buzzing a little bit again in that second period. But the bane of my existence, with less than a minute to go, the Golden Knights scored. William Karlsson scored to make it 4-1 after 2 periods. Third period, Ryan O'Reilly cleans up a loose puck in front of the net to make it a 2-goal game with just under 15 minutes left to go. And all the people in Bridgestone said, Vegas challenged. Midway through the final period, then Forsberg pushed a Zucker goal past Patera to make it a 1-goal game. But this goal was one that Vegas challenged to saying it was offside. And it ended up being this very long review. And the longer the review goes in these situations, the better you feel because, in a 1-goal game, Vegas probably felt very confident that they were going to get this goal overturned. It stood. The goal stood. There just was not enough evidence to overturn the call on the ice, which meant Nashville got a power play out of it. It's a 1-goal game. Nashville's on the power play. And who comes through for us but Gus Nyquist, who scored on the peeper to tie the game up. Nashville held on, kept their wits about them to end regulation tied. Overtime, Ryan O'Reilly, Filip Forsberg, Roman Josi kick off overtime. Once they regained possession, Roman Josi took the puck around a defender to the net to score the game winner just 40 seconds into overtime. Y'all, insane. This was the most important win for the Nashville Predators in this entire 18-game point streak. And it's not because it was over a Western Conference opponent who was chasing us in the wild card standings. It is not because it was a win over the reigning Stanley Cup champions. It is not even because it's about how important these 2 points are. It's because this game reinforced for this team and for everybody who is a fan of this team that this Predators team can handle it. Postseason games can get out of hand like this one did very early. Teams come in hot with that playoff energy, and you can get smacked in the face right away in a postseason game. But Nashville learned that they can come back from a 3-goal deficit in the third period. They know now we can trust our game. We can make something happen in any circumstance. And that's something that the players talked a lot about in the post game. This is what Gus Nyquist had to say very quickly after the game, talking about what this team learned through the win over Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, that's another lesson for us. You know, we're going through a lot of different scenarios and games here, and learning a lot on the way. And that's a great start to win. We never stop. This team never stops. And believe in ourselves. I think that's the biggest thing. You got to have belief.
I love that. This team never stops. This team believes in ourselves. And I think that that is something that this win just reinforces. We know that we have the talent, we know we have the system, and we know that we have the ability to trust each other, and we can trust our game. And you have to be there mentally to go into the postseason. And friends, this was not just the coach or just the player saying that. You know, talk to Andrew Brunette about it as well. After we talked with the players in the locker room, we got a chance to sit down and talk to Andrew Brunette. And, you know, I asked him, I said, hey, we heard about confidence and belief from these players throughout this game. You know, when we talked to them after the win, did you as a coach have that same confidence sitting on the bench during the game? And this is what Andrew Brunette had to say about that.
Yeah. You know, I think, I'd be lying if I say we're going to win the game. I felt really good in the second period. First, I was a little worried. Second, I felt good. Obviously, that last goal. And then the third, I figured if we got one, I liked our chances to give ourselves a chance to win. But what I most liked was after the first, I thought, down 3-0 could have went a couple different ways. And we've seen that through the course of this year that it has. And it went the way that let's get back to being us.
I think that's so important. The players believed, Andrew Brunette believed, but this game really solidified the fact that the team is not going to panic. And we've seen that. Andrew Brunette just said, we've seen this team under these circumstances kind of panic, kind of fold. You could have had a player here or there try to go rogue and do everything themselves, but the Predators did none of that in this circumstance. They trusted themselves. They trusted the plan. They trusted their system. And that is exactly where you want your team to be heading into the postseason. Coming up, we're going to look at some of the other big takeaways from this big win. We're also going to talk about a couple of areas for improvement for the Nashville Predators as they look to wrap up their regular season play over these next couple of weeks. But first, I want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, that's what brings home the winning trophy in sports. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it is easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive with ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. On tomorrow's show, we are going to have a preview of a big Central Division game. The Predators head out to face the Arizona Coyotes. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But today, we are still focused. We are in the afterglow of that absolutely phenomenal Predators comeback 5-4 overtime win over the Vegas Golden Knights. Couple of other takeaways that I think we need to talk about when it comes to this win. The first thing is something that I know our Locked On Pred heads probably are tired of hearing me say, because it's something that I say all the time, but it's still true. And that is that if you want your team to perform well, you need your best players to be your best players. And that's exactly what the Predators got down the stretch in this game from that top line of Ryan O'Reilly, Filip Forsberg, Gus Nyquist. Those three combined for 8 points in this game, and were absolutely critical to the Predators coming back and winning this. Ryan O'Reilly had a goal, 2 assists. Forsberg, a goal and 2 assists. Gus Nyquist had a goal and an assist. And over the course of the season, we have seen how important this top line is, but we've also seen that Nashville can't just rely on these guys. But the bottom line is they're critical pieces for the Predators' success, and that's exactly what you need from them. You need them to step up in big moments, and they did. Filip Forsberg, with his goal last night, hit the 40-goal mark. He is on pace to break that franchise record set by Matt Duchene. We asked him about it in the postgame, and Forsberg said, hey, I don't really track the numbers that closely. And he talked about how fun it was in that 2021-22 season to kind of chase that record with Matt Duchene. But friends, I really think Forsberg is going to break that record. This is the best hockey we've seen from him, and that is saying something. Forsberg has been incredible. And it's not just that he's playing well, it's that he is playing well in big moments, and he is making the players with him so good. This top line really is magic for the Predators. And remember, this was not the line originally that Andrew Brunette kicked off the season with. They came together fairly quickly, and they have been incredible ever since. Ryan O'Reilly said something earlier in the week when we were talking with him about this top line. And one of the things that he said that I think is so important to their success is he said, look, there are no egos on this top line. Like, we just love playing together. You don't have one player feeling like, hey, give it to me, I'm the guy. You have 3 players that are selfless. You have 3 players who trust each other. You have 3 players playing at an extremely high level, very intelligent guys. And the bottom line is they're having a ton of fun together. Last night, one of the highlights in the postgame didn't have a darn thing to do with the game. It was when Ryan O'Reilly slipped up and revealed his secret nickname for Forsberg and Gus Nyquist. This is what he had to say.
Oh gosh, so fun playing with those two. My Swedish meatballs, they're quite exciting out there. They're so smart, and the way they handle the puck. I think when we're tight and working together, it's so much fun.
My Swedish meatballs, y'all. If that does not catch on, I just don't know what else we could do to make it more clever. Love that. I do also love that JW Hood on Twitter wanted to know if we could then call Ryan O'Reilly our Canadian bacon. And I just don't see why not. As a Swede, I fully approve of the My Swedish Meatballs idea from Ryan O'Reilly, but they are having so much fun together, and they are selfless, and they are really, really high quality players. Like Nashville's top line, they showed you what they can do. And it's a line that teams need to be very, very afraid of. The other thing we have to talk about is Roman Josi. And I know we've talked about Roman Josi and we've talked about Roman Josi, but my friends, he is a topic of conversation yet again. When a game is on the line, offensively or defensively, who do you want on the ice? You want Roman Josi on the ice. In this 18-game point streak, Roman Josi has 24 points and 8 goals. And in that 18-game point streak, he only has 1 game with a minus in that plus-minus stat. Now, I know that plus-minus is a little bit of like a hoax stat, but basically, if you don't kind of know how they gauge that, you get +1 if you are on the ice for a goal. You get a -1 if you are on the ice for a goal against. Roman Josi is playing some of his best defensive hockey right now. And we have to talk about the Norris Trophy. We have to talk about it. Again, he is behind Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, Noah Dobson. But look, his name has got to start being in this conversation with the way that he has played through this run and the way that he has led this team this season. There is not an aspect of this Nashville Predators team that is not better because Roman Josi is out there. The other thing I think that it might be important to start talking about is, Roman Josi for Hart. The Hart Trophy is described as being an award for the player adjudged to be the most valuable to his team. How is Roman Josi not in that conversation? Now, who are the front runners for the Hart? Nathan MacKinnon, Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, David Pasternak. Yes, can't deny that these are top players in the league. They are phenomenal. And what some of them are doing are great. Nikita Kucherov. There's another one. But if you look at the players and the teams that they play on, and if you look at the rosters of those teams, I don't know how we're not talking about Josi. Those are all players on teams with tons of talent who are expected to make deep playoff runs, who have been in playoff contention, who have been Stanley Cup. They've been predicted to be Stanley Cup contenders. Here you have Roman Josi, who is the captain of a team that is not even supposed to be in the postseason. This is a team in a reset and a rebuild. They are relying on some young players. They brought in some older veterans, and this captain is leading this team on and off the ice, in the locker room and on the ice. How he is not getting discussion for the Hart Trophy is a little bit mystifying to me. The other thing we have to talk about when it comes to this game is, friends, we got to talk about Bridgestone Arena. This crowd, this city is all in. Even when the team was down 3-0 or 4-1, this crowd really stuck with the Predators. And that matters to this team. I want you to hear from Roman Josi and Ryan O'Reilly on what they had to say about the environment and the experience last night at Bridgestone Arena. This is what Roman Josi had to say.
I think that's what you play for. We scored one, they got loud, and then we scored another one, got louder, and then obviously we tied it up, and everybody I think was standing the rest of the game, and I think as a player you need to soak these moments in because they're fun and they're awesome, and I think we did a good job of staying focused, but at the same time you gotta enjoy those moments, and I think that's why Bridgestone is one of the best places to play in.
Ryan O'Reilly has talked before about coming in as an opponent playing in Bridgestone Arena, but he had kind of a different perspective now being on this team, being a part of the home team playing in Bridgestone Arena. This is what Ryan O'Reilly said after the game.
Yeah, obviously it's a crazy streak, and there's a lot of good luck in there, but we've done a great job earning it too. I think things haven't gone well. We have stuck with the program. Have relied on each other, and we have different guys stepping up at different times all through this run. And again, it's we're preparing for the playoffs. We're building our game for then, and we have to keep growing it. We've got a lot of work left too. We have to get in the playoffs first. But it was nice to see them building tonight. Though that was pretty impressive how loud it was and a little taste of the playoff feel it had. So I'm excited for it.
I talked to Andrew Brunette also after the game and asked him, how did the crowd's interaction affect the team? And I thought he made such a great point because he talked about, you love playing in that environment, but he felt like this was one of the times where the crowd fed off the players. We always talk about the players feeding off of the crowd, and that certainly happens. It was, the Nashville standing O, and it was deafening in there. When Gus Nyquist scored that power play goal that tied it up, it was deafening in there. Nobody sat the rest of this game. Everybody was on their feet through the overtime. But Andrew Brunette said it was nice to see the crowd feed off what the players were doing, that the players were putting it all out there and the crowd was responding to that. And I think you have to acknowledge that this team is giving their all, in this city, this crowd, this fan base has a tremendous amount of respect for it and really showed that last night. So great game, great environment in Bridgestone Arena, just incredible. Again, if you get a chance to watch the replay of this game, you definitely need to check it out. There's one more thing that I definitely want to talk about when it comes to this team and the playoffs and this win last night. But all of this hype, all of this excitement does not mean that the team is perfect. Coming up, we're going to talk about a couple of concerns with the Predators as they finish out the regular season. First, want to let you know this episode is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the NCAA tournaments. Whether you are betting on a big upset or on a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Predators have a big Central Division game again coming up tomorrow night against the Arizona Coyotes. And my friends, just a heads up, Clayton Keller, noted Predators killer, has 8 goals and 11 points in his last 10 games. So my friends, this could be an interesting one. We're going to preview that game on tomorrow's show. And then, because you know what, why not? The Predators leave Arizona and fly to Denver to face the outrageously hot Colorado Avalanche Saturday night. The Avs finally lost. I think they were on a 9-game win streak. They lost last night 2-1 to Montreal. So still plenty of hockey to talk about coming up this week on Locked On Predators. I do want to talk about one thing that I think is really important to note about this team as we look ahead to the playoffs. First of all, they're still not talking about the playoffs as a team. You know, they're kind of dreaming about it, but they are very focused on we're not in yet. We've got to continue to win these games. We've got to be one game at a time, which I think is a really healthy place for the team to be. But I do think if we're going to look at the postseason, we've got to look at the big picture. And one of the things that is most encouraging is that this is a Predators team that is built very differently for the postseason. Even with all of the talent that Nashville has had on their rosters in the recent past, let's be honest, the narrative around Nashville in the postseason is just get in and your goaltender can steal some of these games. And that was something that was true with Pekka Rinne, that has been true with UC Saros. And let's be honest, that could very well continue to be true in a game or two with UC Saros and Kevin Lankinen in this postseason. But overall, that is not the narrative about the Nashville Predators in the postseason. This Nashville Predators team is a very balanced team. Defensively, Roman Josi playing some of the best hockey of his career, and that includes his Norris Trophy year. That includes that 96-point season he had. He is absolutely at the top of his game. You've got somebody like Ryan McDonough, who is playing really well through this 18-game point streak stretch, and who has got tons of postseason experience. You also have young players like Carrier and Lauzon who have really stepped up this season, and if they can be healthy, then I think they're going to be key contributors defensively. Luke Shen, even if, Tyson Barrie, maybe not his best game last night, but if he's your next man up, that ain't too shabby defensively. Offensively, this Predators team's top line, we've talked about it. They are as good as most any other top line in this league, but you also have some quality depth scoring going on. And we got to talk about that line of Jankowski, Novak, and Evangelista. Since the trade deadline, they have created 23 offensive chances for versus 8 chances against. They have a 71.6% versus a 28.4% expected goals for. They are far more likely to score than be scored on. And that has come to fruition. They have scored 4 goals versus 0 goals against. This is another one of those puzzle pieces that makes this Nashville Predators team so much more than just a really good goaltender in the postseason. That fourth line, they do not let up. They had 22 hits, the 3 of them, in the game last night. They get the puck. If they don't have possession, they sure as heck are going to end their shift with it. So many things are going well for this team. And it is not going to be a postseason where this Predators team is going to say, let's just hold on and hope our goaltender can steal the game. That's very different than what we've talked about with the Nashville Predators in previous seasons. So I think it's something to keep an eye on, and I think it's something to be encouraged about. Now, do have to talk about the fact that there are a couple of concerns around the Nashville Predators. One of them is the line of Sissons, Zucker, and Beauvillier. Now, Zucker has 2 goals and an assist since he joined the Predators, getting used to the system, making it adjustments. Beauvillier really is still kind of struggling to find his groove with the team. And I wonder how much rope and space Andrew Brunette is committed to giving him before he maybe makes roster changes. And I will say this, when the team was down 3-0 last night, one of my thoughts was, you know what, if the Predators lose, this may be the opportunity that Cody Glass needs to get back into the lineup, because Andrew Brunette may be a little bit hesitant to switch up the lines when the team's on a win streak. So I was like, hey, upside of a loss, maybe we get Cody Glass back in. So I think that there still needs to be some adjustment in that line when it comes to kind of a middle six, what is happening there. Other thing we have to be honest about is, gosh, what is up with the blue line and the injuries? Last night, of course, Jeremy Lauzon was back. He had a little bit of rust and dust on him. Wasn't necessarily his best game of the season. Did have 4 hits. Jeremy Lauzon is still chasing that NHL record for most hits in a season. We'll see if he can do it after missing some games due to injury. But Alexander Carrier out last night with an upper body injury. Now, he did practice this week, so hopefully this is not something that's going to be serious, that's going to keep him out of games. Of course, Spencer Stastny, Dante Fabro also out last night. And those are 2 players, especially Dante Fabro, that you want to get back in the lineup before the postseason. You want to get him back in the lineup to help this team get those points that they need to get into the postseason. Spencer Stastny, this is a guy you want to have ready to go in the playoffs as well. So a little bit concerning. And I think you saw defensively a little bit maybe more chaos from them. Andrew Brunette's been running different defensive pairings in practice. So it's not like these guys have had time in practice to get used to playing together. And I think maybe you saw maybe a little bit of a lack of connection, especially in that first period. So if we can get some of these guys healthy, get back to the defensive pairings that have brought Nashville success, I think you're going to see improved performances as well. So all in all, friends, to sum it up, last night was one of the best Predators games I can remember in a long time. And as I was running downstairs right as soon as the overtime win happened, I heard 2 guys walking out and they were so jazzed. And they're like, that is the best game I've ever seen in Bridgestone. And I don't think they're wrong. So the question becomes, can the Nashville Predators keep it up? Again, they've got some tough games ahead on the schedule later this week. But for today, I give y'all permission to just love and be excited about what we saw last night from the Nashville Predators. I can assure you the team is already focused on what they need to do coming up in these games, but the rest of us, we can just enjoy what we saw. And of course, here at Locked On Predators, we're going to be covering whatever comes next for this team. You can, of course, follow this podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. You can subscribe to Locked On Predators on YouTube. Also, be sure to follow the podcast on social media. We are at LO_Predators. That's going to do it for us today here at Locked On Predators. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back tomorrow to talk plenty more about these Nashville Predators.